You're welcome to this edition of the Power Circuit program, proudly brought to you by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. The Power Utility Company is the sole manager of the national power grid, serving the power generation companies and the electricity distribution companies to deliver electricity to consumers. In today's edition, we bring you a report on the Minister of Power, Engineer Saleh Maman, and the officials of the United Kingdom Infrastructure Facility as they discuss key strategies for the power sector. There is also a highlight on how the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, continues to deliver on its mandate of improving and expanding the national power grid assets. Our spotlight today is on the encroachment of right-of-way of power transmission lines across the various regions of TCN. In this series, which would continue in subsequent editions, we'll hear from the General Manager, Health, Safety and Environment at TCN, Mr. Kange Skefas, who speaks on these right-of-way violations. We will take you through the Enugu region of TCN, where various violations of the right-of-way of power transmission lines have been recorded. We have a full pack for you in this edition. I am Amara Agogoisi. Do stay with us on this program. The Minister of Power, Engineer Saleh Maman, has held a meeting with members of the United Kingdom Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility. The meeting is held from time to time where strategies on the delivery of power infrastructure in Nigeria are discussed. Here is more reports on this.
The United Kingdom Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility UKNIAF team was led by the program lead for power, Mr. Frank Edozie, to discuss partnerships that could help to transform critical power infrastructure and project development. The participants at the meeting, which held in the Minister's office at the Powerhouse in Abuja, discussed how the facility can be of help with providing technical support to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NEC), the Transmission Company of Nigeria (TCN), the Rural Electrification Agency (REA), and the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC (MBET). This will be focusing on power sector policy reforms, tariff reforms, audits of the distribution companies, discuss grid efficiency and sustainable off-grid renewable solutions. It will especially help the Nigerian power sector market evolution transition from the transitional electricity market (TEM) to the medium-term electricity market (MTEM), which involves increased generation competition and the limited retail competition. The Minister of Power, Engineer Saleh Maman, was joined by the Director of Renewable Energy and Rural Power Access at the Federal Ministry of Power, Engineer Farouk Yusuf Yabo, the Minister's Special Advisor on Policy, Mr. Abba Aliu, and the Minister's Technical Advisor on Strategic Coordination, Dr. Nurain Hassan, among others.
The Power Circuit continues after this break.
Did you know that our high-tension transmission cables were built to withstand high temperatures except artificially induced ones such as fire? Did you know that burning bush or refuse dumps by TCN transmission tower base or along the transmission line's right-of-way is an offense? Did you know that the fire can cause high-tension transmission lines to snap and fall to the ground, electrocuting living things within the line radius? Did you know that extreme fire can cause the legs of transmission towers to buckle, and that buckling of the main frame of a tower would lead to its collapse and may even pull down other towers along that transmission line's route, causing untold damage to the line? Now that you know. Yes, now that you know, TCN is calling on all citizens of Nigeria to please desist from destroying our collective national investments. Be careful, do not set fire on trash or burn bush beside transmission towers or under electricity lines nationwide. Help us preserve the transmission grid and save the nation from blackout. TCN, transmitting electricity in the most efficient and effective manner.
The management of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, led by the Acting Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Engineer Sule Ahmed Abdulaziz, says the Power Utility Company has been positioned by the federal government in its mandate to advance operations in the private-led power sector. Our reporter brings you more about the milestones and focus of TCN.
The Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, is at the middle of the power sector value chain, carrying out the pivotal role of evacuating power from generation companies, GENCOs, to the distribution companies, DISCOs, nationwide. According to a statement by the General Manager, Public Affairs at TCN, Ndidi Mba, TCN is implementing projects in line with its transition expansion plan aimed at systematically expanding the power grid network. Today, a visit to TCN work centers across the country, along with the monitoring of the system operation records of TCN, will reveal huge information about how the capacity of the national grid has improved under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, especially with the record of 4 all-time peak in the sector in 2020 and 2 records in January 2021 so far. TCN in the statement further clarified that it does not distribute electricity to electricity consumers and cannot also switch off consumer feeders. The jurisdiction of the company on the national power grid network is from 330 kV to 132 kV power lines. The company cannot switch off consumers' feeders as it is not within the jurisdiction of TCN but the distribution companies. On its part, TCN has continuously worked to improve its bulk power wheeling capacity, which currently stands at 8,100 megawatts, even as it continues to work towards complementing ongoing projects. It reminded the public that localized power outages and load shedding is not under its control across network of the 11 DISCOs. The company, which gave an insight into the operations under the Abuja region, which services Abuja DISCO, said at the 2x60 MVA Caro transmission substation, all the feeders are set based on the load demand and nomination presented by AEDC on a daily basis and delivering bulk power optimally. Although the statement said TCN has pockets of challenges, as with every other participant in the electricity value chain, TCN is not the major factor in local outages. TCN said vandalism has a major challenge to transmission lines in recent times, especially in Abuja, but that TCN promptly repairs such lines anytime it occurs as it works with security agencies to monitor the lines. It therefore appealed to the general public to be more vigilant in assisting the company in the fight against power equipment vandalism. At the Kuba substation, TCN said one of the 60 MVA power transformers which developed fault was taken out for repairs and that a replacement has been procured and will be delivered any time from now. However, the second transformer in the substation is transmitting a full load of 42 megawatts, which can adequately take care of the load requirement for Kuba axis and environs. TCN also said it is implementing the Abuja Ring project, which is at various stages of implementation. The project, which involves the addition of 5 new substations and 2 major transmission lines, are equally ongoing. With a timeline of 3 to 5 years execution, these transmission projects will significantly increase the power transmission capacity in Abuja, the TCN management assured. The company also said while it is optimizing its available resources to better serve the DISCOs and GENCOs through effective maintenance of the existing grid network, it is applying best practices in completing ongoing low-hanging fruits projects to improve the overall grid capacity. This approach paid off quickly, as evidenced in the 6 all-time peak generation recorded in the sector on the following days within the last 6 months, with 4 in 2020. TCN on January 6th and 7th, 2021 recorded yet another all-time peak of 5,552.40 megawatts and 5,584.40 megawatts. The management said this consistency and regular incremental improvement in grid performance on TCN's part is an indication of the professionalism and best practices that were brought in by the new TCN management. To better serve the 11 DISCOs, TCN said it has entered into a service level agreement (SLA) with the DISCOs, and it is retraining its staff nationwide to ensure proper synergy and effective service delivery to improve the grid and deliver quality electricity to consumers across the country.
The General Manager Health, Safety and Environment at TCN, Mr. Kange Cephas, provides insight on these right-of-way violations as we take you through the Enugu region of TCN, where serious violations of the right-of-way of power transmission lines have been recorded.
The TCN has basically two high-tension lines, which is 330 kV and 132. For the 330, the setback is 25 meters this way and 25 meters this way from the center line. Okay. For the 132, it's 15 meters this way and 15 meters this way from the central line. So that makes it altogether is 50 for 330 and 30 for 132.
Mr. Cephas explained the process TCN follows to acquire a right-of-way.
We really follow a very strenuous way. First and foremost, before we run a line, there must be what we call line route. The wayleave and property sector, subsector of the TCN will go across the line, the obvious places we think the line should pass. That is what we call line route. When the line route is established, we now engage consultants to look at the route in what we call AIA, which is Environmental Impact Assessment. They assess to see how the passing of that route affects people, how it affects their crops, how it affects their buildings. If we find out that it's going to impact too negatively on people in terms of destroying so many houses and so many public utilities and all that, we now divert the route. But if we feel that the route will cost minimally, both to us and both to the people affected by the project, we now decide to hold stakeholders engagement, getting those who are affected to know that we are going to construct a line across their place. We also get to assess how much compensation should be offered in terms of the crops destroyed and buildings. Then we do that in the stakeholders meeting. After the stakeholders meeting, the consultants that are doing the AIA will submit their draft report. We look at the draft report, send it to the ministry. The ministry looks at it, does some corrections, framing some environment, they'll bring it back, we'll look at it together again, then we hold panel review. The panel review is when the whole result of the AIA or the environmental impact, social management plan report is ready. We call all the stakeholders together. The consultant shows us where the line is going to pass, what is going to be involved, and we have people affected by the project around who we either have complaints or accept or disagree with whatever the consultant have done. And when these are resolved, then we get to the ministry, now gives us approval, we get to the various governments, we pay compensation to these people, and then we acquire the right of way.
In spite of these cumbersome processes involving the meeting of stakeholders and payment of compensation to affected owners of farmlands and residential areas, the TCN safety expert was worried that cases of encroachment of the right-of-way of TCN power lines are on the rise.
There are so plenty. There are so plenty. You go to Kano, you go to Kaduna, you go to, in fact, there is one in Owerri that will puzzle you, a back area. It's got a 132 tower. It's inside somebody's house. And he said, Chief, he started talking to him, he said he owns the land. So almost everywhere in this country, the right of way is being encroached.
However, these violations have health and hazard implications for those indulging in the act.
Economically, when you have a line that if any of a line cuts, it damages so much. Even then, like you may have had in 2013 or so, that just a 11 kVA line cut in Calabar, where people were watching football. It fell on a building and about 33 people died. Not to talk about 132 or 330 that is most carry so much power. So when this line comes, it will not burn up houses, it will burn people and all that. Another subtle way of encroachment that is also costing lives is that we have issues of people climbing these pylons or these towers.
The head System Lines Department at TCN Enugu Sub-Region in New Haven, Enugu State, Engineer C.N. Nwokedi, during a line assessment tour along with the Principal Manager Lines of Enugu Region, Engineer Kolawole Orumiloye, explained that the right-of-way of the 330 kV Onitsha to New Haven transmission line has been constantly encroached on by locals.
As I'm talking to you now, we are standing under Tower 233. Onitsha, New Haven 330 kV, transmission kV line. This line is the line that will power from Onitsha to New Haven transmission station. Our problem on this line is that people are building under our high tension line. We have done our best. We have written to them. We have called town meeting, but to no avail. So that's why we are here, for the men to know exactly what's going on in our region.
From 233 to 237, you see a lot of encroachment and encroachments on the line. Obstructive buildings under the high tensions, which can be detriment to the people staying under it as a result of radiation, which can lead to, electrocution of people. People should desist from staying under this transmission line, as government has informed them.
Engineer Nwokedi said more residential building projects violated the 50-meter distance from 330 kV transmission line.
As we are looking at our conductor, we've been have a meeting with them. I told them that distance of TCN right of way on 330 kV line is 25 meters left and right. But as you can see what is going on now, if you measure now from the center of the tower by the left or by the right, see the houses are inside our TCN right of way. There's area I will show you where I marked the whole thing. They have removed my marks. I marked removed by TCN. So I've done my best to stop them, but they were unable to operate with us.
Tower 014, Tower 14, from Ugwaji to New Haven, 330 kV line. You remember, this is a double circuit, still at Enugu South, Owo community, Ogu Inike. The Four Trust Digital Center, we saw the front, that the back elongated to the right of way of transmission line is what you can see now. And if you look at the description, removed by TCN, that is already here, to show you that this line is still within the right of ways of transmission line, because right from the middle of the transmission line is 25 meters, from the middle of the circuit is 25 meters right and 25 meters left, 50 meters in between. If you take measurement of this place now, it's about 15 meters. So it's still within the right of ways. All efforts to get them remove these illegal properties are still remain in place.
The spotlight on right-of-way encroachment continues after this break. Don't go away.
Do you know that vandalizing power infrastructure and stealing its components have negative impact on government's efforts towards improving the nation's power sector? Say no to vandalism. Vandalism leaves TCN with the enormous task of re-erecting and restringing damaged power transmission lines and towers, which cost millions of naira to rebuild. Money that should be used for transmission expansion projects to make increased bulk electricity readily available to electricity consumers through the distribution companies. Do you know that vandals are destroying our common national assets, funded with taxpayers' monies, and negatively impeding our common socio-economic progress? Say no to vandalism. This message is brought to you by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. TCN, transmitting bulk electricity for national development.
There are more erections that encroach the right-of-way within the Ogoyi area in Enugu South local government area of the state along the Ogwaji New Haven 330 kV double cycle transmission line. One of such is a spot now turned into a mechanic village between towers 14 and 15 as the occupants ignore warning inscriptions, and a school that has also ignored the warning sign by TCN. The fence of the Dunamis Church also fell into the encroachment area as its officials ignored the removed sign. There is another new building sprawling right under the transmission line. At Tower 234 and 235, still along Onitsha to New Haven 330 kV transmission line, a market is expanding.
They have turned here to a marketplace, and we served them with letters, but they couldn't respond. We are called for town meeting, who the owner of the structures came. But as I'm talking to you now, you can see what is going on.
A lot of shops has come under, and regrettably enough, most of these structures are iron made metallic, under 330 kV voltage, of which, if there is sudden snapping or thunderstorm strike, all the people within the vicinity will be affected.
The assessment tour continued at a heavy-duty earth-moving equipment vehicle spot that has been turned into a market between the Ugwaji to New Haven line.
Any problem of Ifeno will be disastrous. Look at this machinery, earth-moving equipment, with a high boom crane, that if they should boom to a certain level under the 330 kV transmission line, it can be disastrous, not only to the property but human life. So it is illegal.
The encroachment was huge near the switch yard connecting the 330 kV Onitsha to New Haven transmission line and the Ogwaji to New Haven transmission line. At the New Haven through Nsukka to Otukpoti of 132 kV transmission line at the New Haven in Enugu, especially from Tower 3, there are similar violations.
This building that was removed by ECTDA, that is Enugu Capital Territory Development Authority, as at 30th of January 2019, and inscription by HCN to be removed. This is a new line running from New Haven to Night Mile via Nsukka.
You have heard from the General Manager, Health, Environment and Safety of TCN, Mr. Kanges Kefas, as he spoke about the implications of encroaching on the right-of-way of power lines. You also heard from officials of TCN at Enugu region, precisely during an assessment tour of such violations within the Enugu metropolis and its environs. Lined up for your viewing delight in subsequent editions are reports on the violations of right-of-way in Anambra State, various states in the southwest, and more, with a view towards catalyzing collective actions to deter those who indulge in these acts. It's a wrap, but then, here are the highlights. Minister, officials of UK Infrastructure Facility discuss strategies to improve power sector. TCN working to further expand national electricity grid. From our spotlight, you view the report on the violations of the right-of-way of power transmission lines in Enugu State under the Enugu region of TCN. We appreciate you for always staying with us on the Power Circuit program. You can view this episode and others on TCN YouTube channel. Please interact with us on these platforms because TCN needs your support to advance its mandate. Just as we must join hands to stop the encroachment of the right-of-way of power lines, we implore you to keep observing the COVID-19 safety protocols of non-pharmaceutical interventions like wearing a mask, washing or sanitizing your hands, and keeping physical distance as directed by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, to overcome the pandemic. I am Amara Agugoisi. Thank you for staying with us.